I'm Julie Ross.
And I'm Elizabeth Cohen.
And this is the Parenting Horizons podcast.
Julie Ross is a parent educator and counselor with over 30 years of experience in private practice.
Elizabeth is a clinical psychologist with over 20 years of experience in private practice.
Perhaps most importantly, we're parents just like you.
Through conversations covering a wide range of different parenting topics, challenges, and roadblocks, we hope to give you some practical tools that might just help make parenting a little bit easier.
Nobody's perfect, and parenting is challenging, to say the least. But with a few skills under our belts, we might just be able to be good enough parents and enjoy the journey and our children a little bit more in the process.
Hello, and welcome back to the Parenting Horizons podcast. I am here, as usual, with my super smart, beautiful co-host, Elizabeth Cohen. And we have a guest today whose name is Dr. Gertrude Lyons. And I'm going to let you take it away from there, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Julie. I'm so grateful to be here with you again on our podcast. It's such a gift. So I'm really excited today that we're joined by Dr. Gertrude Lyons. She has spent nearly 30 years working with women, parents, and families. And in her new book, Rewrite the Mother Code, she challenges the cultural script that says motherhood must mean self-sacrifice and overextension. Instead, she introduces the idea of, quote, mother energy, which we're going to talk about today, and offers a very powerful framework that I loved reading about called Voice to help women rewrite their inner messaging that shapes how we care, create, and lead. So her work focuses on us mothering ourselves and how to redefine what nurturing really means in our lives. So we're so glad you're here. Welcome, welcome.
We are very glad you're here.
Thanks for having me.
We're so excited.
I was so excited too.
Yeah, this is such an important topic.
Yeah.
And one of the things I loved about your work that really drew me right away was this idea of us that we're all mothering. I always write on Mother's Day text to all my friends who have mothered me through a lot of my healing. And so I like to use mother as a verb. So seeing that you said we're all mothering really resonated with me. So if someone's hearing that idea for the first time, can you share a little bit about what you mean by that?
I will. Thank you. This is something that came to me in my studies. And while not came to me, I didn't invent this idea, right? I don't mean that, but it really hit me and struck me and was really striking the women I was working with, which is that we all mother, we and all people, but all women will say for here, all women mother. We conceive, create, give birth to children if we choose, but also our careers, our relationships, ideas, dreams, anywhere where we're putting our caring, creative, nourishing energy, we're mothering. And that the most important person we need to mother is ourselves.
Very true.
Very
so
true.
There's a lot to unpack there, but that's it.
I love that. And you're speaking reminds me, I had a client years ago who and I want to talk a little bit about people who are making the decision to be a mother or not. And she was childless by choice and had been given birth to a book. And we talked so much about the labor of the book, the months of the book. And it was such an important reframe. And I could tell that she just felt so much more, part of womanhood by using that phrase. So can you talk a little bit about that, since we're on this topic now, about women and what you tell women who are considering having children or not sure? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of what I'm trying to present or invite us into is making discerned choices, right? Like we're so scripted from our cultures, we're coded, from our families, from the culture around us for what's okay, what's right, what you're supposed to do. And we just become so unconscious to it. Yeah. I really want to raise the awareness to, even when someone might ask, and I was asked this, do you want to have children? Yeah, of course. It was just like, yeah, like what? This is a question I'm supposed to contemplate, And then, and at the same, like women who, no, not doing that. So and this isn't you if you don't explore that, it like you're bad or wrong. It's more, oh, this is an invitation. Like this is an exploration. Let's be curious about that. Let's be curious about how I got wired that way. What did I see in the family culture I was in and around me that led me to such a knee-jerk response, one way
Mm.
or the other. And out of that, we just get to like, go a little deeper, look at what are some of what might be down deep there, buried unconsciously, and bringing that, up to be looked at, possibly healed, all sorts of things that can come out of that exploration. But mostly it's, oh, okay, I've really looked at the landscape here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've had, women I coach sometimes, oh, surprisingly, like I actually really it felt like blasphemy to say, I don't know if I want to have children. I
Yeah.
just thought I was supposed to.
Hmm.
And, these beliefs that come along with it, like I'm not a woman if I don't, we're not
Yeah.
a family if we don't. And those were things I confronted along the way in my conception journey. Um, and then, to help navigate that choice, that then you have a choice that you've made. Like you've really clearly made this decision.
Right.
And now you can work with that, right?
Right. It's reminding me of like deciding like I want to go for a hike today and not looking at the map, right? Not knowing what door you're entering, what hiking location you're going to. It's so interesting what you're saying because
Yeah.
so many of my clients, I imagine Julie has had this experience as well. It feels a little bit like you wake up one day and you're a mom. And where was the choice, right? And again,
Mhm.
you might have made the exact same choice, but the
Exactly.
intentionality of choice really does impact, I think, how you embody that choice for the rest of your experience with it.
Mm.
So I really
Mhm.
like this intentionality and curiosity and awareness of the actual choice of having children. And you're right, even when you said it, you whispered, I don't want children. It's still like you do this work
Right?
and
It's
you're
still
still doing it,
there.
right? It's like, it is, it's like
Could I
blasphemous.
say that? Like, could I,
Yeah.
later as I explored it and I worked with women who and couples who chose to be child free, it's like, wow, I I get to also look at like I missed out on something. Like that's a different experience. And I geez, if I had made the discerned choice, would I have? I think so. And it doesn't impact like I love my children. Like people are always like, oh,
Exactly.
you don't like your children? And it's like, no, that has nothing to do with
No.
it.
Oh
Nothing
my
to do with
gosh.
it.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. I have that conversation with myself a lot. Like if I knew exactly how it was, I don't know if I would still do it, especially given the childhood trauma that I had. It was a
Mm.
lot of work. And
Yeah.
that I really appreciate when people can be honest about that and really share that because holding that makes me think of some of the other work you talk about, which we'll talk about later, but about the shame, like carrying the
Hmm.
shame that somehow we're supposed to be able to do everything. Who told
Right.
what? What is that?
Yeah,
No.
Right,
that
I
Julie?
know.
for me,
I think yeah, go
that
ahead.
that for me, that shame of having to be a super mom, or a superwoman and not being able to fulfill that goal because it's not a realistic goal is is
Hmm.
it resonates more with me than the kind of discerned choice about being a mother. I always wanted to be a mother. From the time I was little, I wanted to be a mother. And it wasn't I didn't have to think about it or pick it apart. It was just something deep inside of me. And I think there are women out there who feel like that.
Hmm.
And, looking back and listen, it is the hardest work I've ever done. Um, but even if I had known all of that before I had kids, I absolutely still wanted kids. Right. So, and I think that there's a certain part of the population who has that gut feeling. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't explore, you know, especially so that we can be empathetic with others who don't make that choice,
Hmm. Yes.
because that's not fair. Every
Hmm.
woman, everybody who has a child, whether it's a biological child or an adopted child or a child by surrogacy or whatever it might be, has the right to that choice. The yes versus no. No, I do not want this. Um, and what really resonates for me, Gertrude, is this idea that,
Hmm.
you know, the mental load that women bear, that mothers bear. And that's what I didn't examine. I just took all of that on. I didn't like, there was no intentionality. I just was like, that's the way it's supposed to be. And that has led me down some difficult paths. So I think that too is part of this discernment about, what's appropriate and what's really not appropriate to take on.
Yeah, for sure. If I can speak to that a
Please.
little bit, because people often ask, like, so what's the number one code? And, I spell out certain, some of the more obvious mother codes in our culture. And one of them is that there's a right way to do it. We're supposed to do it. And if we're doing it right, part of that right way is alone.
Yeah.
Like we're supposed to know how to do it, just, instinctively. And it doesn't mean there aren't some natural instincts, but we've been separated in our culture. So there's a lot actually that doesn't work for that one, that maybe used to. But this has been going on, for honestly, thousands of years where, we have been put in this role of, this is your purpose, this is your job.
Yeah.
You shouldn't want or expect, more than this, and this is your highest calling. So that's some pretty heavy, generational program. We don't have a lot of models looking around us to say, but instead it's like, then we've even framed that like, you can have it all, right? Like, not only, are you supposed to do it all, like, oh, I want it all. So I want to work and I want to raise these kids, but then I'm still supposed to do it alone. I'm still supposed to carry all of it myself. And that has harmed us so much. And I think that's what you're kind of mentioning for yourself, Julie. It's unrealistic because that structure was built in a over masculine, value dominated, we can say patriarchal, right?
Yes,
like that's
I was
just
going to ask about that.
Not man, woman, but patriarchal construct where there is a right way to do it, and there's a judgment of it, and there's a kind of like work or school. Like we've suddenly slotted motherhood and parenthood, under those umbrellas where you get check marks and grades and judgment for it. And that has, and it's unrealistic because that's not what it is. That's not the reality of what it is.
For sure.
And also you're talking about it being patriarchal, also incredibly individualistic. I mean, I'm thinking that one of the most difficult pieces for myself and my clients is that parenting is an outcome measured. And being a mother isn't, you do well if your kids are well. I hear this all the time.
Yes.
That if, right? Like just the other day I was talking to a client, and if it's like, if the house is chaotic, I must be doing something wrong. The mother just quickly goes back to, what am I doing wrong? As if it's a one-to-one correlation. And that's the piece of the code that I think too. It's not just, it's what Julie said, of course, the pressure and the mental load to do it all alone, and then to be perfect at it. To be perfect at it, which does not exist because people are people. Like, what is perfect?
In a paradigm that doesn't fit it. So we're never going to feel like enough. We're always going to feel like we're doing it wrong because it doesn't fit that structure. Right. So oh my gosh, we have it like, it's that, and that adds to the mental load, right? That adds to
the mental
load.
And
then we look at Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, then we're looking outside and we have social media and we have all these people like trying to show that like they are doing it. Like then we think like, oh, why can't I do it? It looks like they're doing it, and nobody's talking about how they're not doing it, or and I mean they are more. I'm being a little. It has opened up. I don't want to be totally pessimistic about it, but social media has added a whole other layer to it and put us, on display, to measure ourselves against these unrealistic parameters.
I'm really proud of actually, this brings something up for me. I'm really proud of my daughter because she has a 6-year-old as of yesterday and twins. And so she uses Instagram. She's a young person, like most people who, she uses the Instagram. But it was so cute because for Valentine's Day, she put up the picture perfect, 3 kids sitting together on the couch. And then she did behind the scenes where, one kid has, their fingers up the brother's nose and the other kid is wrestling. And I thought, good for you for showing that it's not picture perfect, that there is chaos. And that doesn't mean that you're a bad parent for putting that up. I was so proud of her, I have to admit.
Oh, good
Yeah.
work. Good work.
Brave.
She did good.
And it's brave because I think there's a lot of shame as for women. First
Yeah.
of all, there's shame for women day one when you come
yeah.
out of, right? And then the shame of somehow you're not doing it well. And I think, Gertrude, to your point also about social media, there's so many references now and resources that it's like 5 ways to have easy kids, as if it's easy.
Right.
So I think that
know.
also adds to it. It's like, well, didn't you read that article? Or I always think about when a parent comes to me, and I know Julie hears this a lot, and their kid's not sleeping and they don't know what to do. And I just say to myself, give no strategies, just empathize. They don't need any, they've read a million articles, right? Like we're not in the intervention phase yet, right? We're just in the, yeah, it sucks. You know how many other, one thing I always tell clients is like, and I wonder if you try this, Gertrude, too, of like, imagine when you're up at night with your kid or your kid's having a temper tantrum in the supermarket, whatever the things we've all been through, like how many times has there been a kid lying on that floor, right? Like just how many other people are up in the middle of the night in New York, or New York or Chicago with all the buildings.
Yes.
There's so many, you're not alone, but this loneliness feeling, right? We don't have elders and to say, oh, I remember when I went through this. In fact, many of my clients feel like their parents are like, I don't remember you like this.
Oh my,
right?
I know, the selective memory amnesia, right? There's
exactly.
no way we weren't like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But I can feel that even like getting older. It's like, I was thinking about this the other day, like, well, how old was one of my daughters when she learned to walk? Like, I'm like, I should have kept better track. And then I'm like, oh, there I go again, like feeling like a bad parent because I, 1, don't remember, and 2, I didn't write it down.
Right.
But anyway, that's just an aside, right?
That's a great example, though.
But you brought up that we don't have, a village culture anymore. This culture of community remotely. I mean, we're really trying to create them and get creative in how to have that. But for so long, it has been a culture of isolation. Again, like you're supposed to do it alone. If you're a real champion, if you don't ask for help, if you don't, but to not, how are we supposed to when we're not living in that community where we're observing and, watching all the life cycles of us as humans, from birth to death and how it's being handled and this isolation. Well, now I'm talking about 2 things because I also want to name this isolation, then it pits us against each other. So not only are we, we have these unrealistic expectations. We look on Instagram sometimes and, we have these ways of judging, and then we don't feel enough and we're not doing it right. So then the just, it's kind of a natural, but the propensity is to judge others so we feel better. We're trying to just feel better about ourselves. Right. So I don't think it's like malicious or even harmful, but when we're, up against those standards, it's like, oh, well, I wouldn't make that decision or, like, oh, who's she? And so much of what I'm hoping also as we have these conversations is to get us on one team, to find the connections, to find even from the child free to the child, and then not judging each other for the choices we're making, but we could start with being curious, right? We don't have to agree even, but it's like, oh, or okay, like, or wow, looks like she's got some area kind of handled. I wonder how she's doing that. Like, I'm not doing that yet. Like, there's a lot of ways we can, even in the environment, just talk better to ourselves, and start with ourselves in this, in this whole unraveling that we're trying to do. I mean, we couldn't even have had this conversation couple hundred years ago, like it's not
Right.
that
Yeah.
long that
No.
having something like this, would have, sent us, well, 200 years, we wouldn't have gone to prison, but we certainly would have been, you know,
Ostracized. Yeah. We wouldn't have been,
ostracized
yeah,
in
we wouldn't
some
be
way or the
asked to be.
other.
Exactly. Julie and I love the word
Yeah.
curiosity. We talk about that a lot on our
Yes.
podcast. And I was just imagining, also just the pain. And I can really feel this. I have like an embodied feeling of loss of community when I was raising my
Mm.
kids. I remember reading about it and I could really feel it in my body that I longed for more community. And I was imagining like, you're overwhelmed with your kid and an auntie or a neighbor or somebody, just picks your kid up and takes them and addresses what's happening with them. And that's not just about getting help. In that moment for me, what I'm realizing is
Mm.
that you would learn like, oh, there's a point where you can't do it. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to not do
Mhm.
it. I think we miss, right? Like we
I love
miss
that.
those
Yes.
moments. Again,
Yeah.
like I have to do it. So I got to look up some stuff or go to a therapist. It's like, it's okay to be overwhelmed and you
Mm.
can rely on other people to come in and then you'll do that to them. And this reminds me as I'm talking about it, you talk about compulsive overextension and
Mm.
sacrifice. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
I think this lack of community really breeds that. Do you
It
agree?
really does. Oh, I 100% agree. Um, well, again, I guess we come back to like you said, oh, I'm some sort of failure if I can't soothe my baby in this moment. Right. And if someone comes and swoops him away and then the baby's soothed, it could be a learning opportunity, right? It could be just thank goodness, in this moment, I'm not able to soothe.
Right.
And
Right.
there's lots of people who can hold my baby and that poor, and I can go to have a minute for myself because who knows, maybe, I'm not soothing because I'm all wound up or,
Yeah.
there's so many ways like I could, use that time that isn't about beating myself up
Right.
and, alleviate some of the overwhelm with it or the over expectation, I
Yeah.
guess, of how we're supposed to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was just remembering a client of mine who, and this happens a lot, Julie. I wonder if you hear this in New York City. Many people work, both people work, and so they might hire a nanny. And
Mhm.
then if the baby or a child starts, this is a quote, liking the nanny more, those are sessions upon sessions of what a terrible parent I am. Or if they like the other
Mhm.
parent. It's making me think about this competition that must be coming
Yeah.
from this, right? This internalized sense of not enoughness that parents
Mhm.
carry,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean,
Do you hear that,
all the
Julie,
time.
about that
Yeah,
experience?
all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and even if there's not a nanny involved, as you said, Elizabeth, it's like, a child might want mommy to put them to bed every night or want daddy to put them to bed every night. And the other parent starts feeling very left out, criticized almost
Yeah.
by
Mhm.
the child's
Mm,
desire for that other parent, and ultimately also feels incompetent in that role
Mm.
because I must not be competent or my child would want me to do it. And it's really, I
yeah.
work very hard at telling them it's not personal. It's really not personal.
Right.
It's sometimes the
Mhm.
kid wants one over the other. It's okay, you know?
Right.
And that has me thinking too, as you're saying that, Julie, I don't think I don't know, taught, whatever, that the idea doesn't really also come across that like, yeah, this is a vulnerable job.
Oh,
We want
yeah,
that attention. Like we're
Mhm.
getting it's affirming, when the child wants me,
yes,
right? It's like, we kind of
Yeah.
like
yes,
bathe in it a little bit. So when it's not
Yes.
like, it's okay. I think it's okay to feel hurt or sad,
sure,
and then remember, okay, but and I'm the adult. Like, how do I have some needs I need to get met. I need to be,
yes,
there's nothing wrong, with this hunger for the affirmation. Um, but I don't want to just put it on that child to feel like they have to give it to me. Right.
Right.
I'm sure you guys have
Right. And
had,
we see that a
this,
lot, of
Yes.
right?
course. And
Yes.
I think it circles back to what we started with the intentionality, even of the choice. Like if you go into parenthood thinking about what are the
Mm,
things that might be hard for me? Like, for example, let's say a parent never got attention from their parent. They're going to be,
mhm.
we all know, more vulnerable for the kid to want them
Yeah.
to go to sleep, right? So this is what we try to talk
Mm.
about a lot on this podcast is like awareness of yourself, awareness of
Mm,
where you're coming without judgment and with compassion can help you ride through these difficult experiences of parenting with a
yeah.
gentleness towards yourself. And it's just
Mm,
so few people have that. That's what we try to help people have.
Yeah.
And that's
I
why we have
love
guests
that.
like
It's
you.
really
And
about
yeah, and that's why you have,
yourself or reparenting yourself,
Yeah.
mhm.
being able to do that.
And that's an opportunity, right? I think
Yes.
that's kind of what I set out for in my doctorate, is to raise that awareness that there's
Yeah.
a personal development growth opportunity amidst this chaos, right? Like there's something in it for you,
Absolutely.
and it's not necessarily easy, and it's not, we all have this, sometimes, yes, we all have some level of kind of a fantasy of what it's going to give us. But really, no matter what, across the board, it's going to give us opportunities for self-realization and
Yes, it gives you
self-reflection.
many, many opportunities.
So
And
many
I
opportunities.
think it's such a misconception. My hackles go up when parents say like, "You'll see when you have children,
Mm.
just you'll have so much compassion for me." And very often it's like, "No, I don't. I actually see how painful it was for me." Like that's not the story
Yeah.
actually. And I think that even that is a narrative that goes along that, "Oh, I have to be so
Mhm.
grateful for my parents." Like that's not how everybody
No.
feels. And so
No.
if you're walking into parenthood with a confusing experience, to say the least, about your own childhood, how can that not impact your
Right.
parenting? But we just don't
Mhm.
talk about that at
Yeah.
all,
We really don't.
No, and wouldn't it be,
right?
what would happen if we like really come to realize like that's part of what you're signing on for. Not like,
Exactly.
oh, because you don't have a choice. It's going to come at you, right? Like
Right.
it will come at you. How we deal with it, we have a choice in, right?
Right.
Exactly.
How we meet that, we do have choice. And if we're just, even again, we'll love our favorite word, curious,
Yeah.
about, wow, why does this bother me so
Mhm.
much, or I get so charged up? And my husband is like nonplussed by it. It's like, oh, I
Right.
get to look at like why that behavior, is particularly upsetting for me,
Yes.
and where did that
Exactly.
come from? And yes, one of you said it, I'm sorry, I don't remember which, but we do get this beautiful opportunity, treasure opportunity of growing ourselves up with our children,
Yeah.
Yes.
that we can heal and reparent. And that, like, if we could, and I feel like I have two, teammates on the
Yeah.
team, make that just, really aware that that is
Yeah.
part of what is naturally going to be there and available to us.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have this fantasy right now of what if OBGYNs and
ah,
pediatricians, right? Like, in
yes.
addition to asking, like, oh, did your family have diabetes? Like, how did your parent, what happened when, the attachment style
Yes.
questionnaire, for example, like, who put you to bed at
Hmm.
night? What happened when you were sick? Like,
Yes.
right? Can you imagine if
So great.
it's like, it reminds me of like the idea of before marriage, like having a few sessions with a couples therapist, like, ask yourself, what are my
Right.
attachments? How did I attach? Because there's a sense also, and this goes so beyond like just having your kids. It's also the
Hmm.
caretakers, and where do you live and how do you manage everything? It has so much, I mean, we all believe this has so much to do with your attachment style. That where is
Yeah.
that in our culture? Where are we talking about that?
Yeah. In a few places,
Yeah. Well,
I keep
unfortunately,
trying to be
Ivory, talk about
positive. I was,
talk
oh,
about Ivory
yeah.
Tower. I mean, I feel like
Hmm.
attachment styles as a psychologist is now in the lexicon a little bit more, but at least certainly when I started out, it
Oh
was
my gosh,
being
no.
researched in universities. It wasn't being
It,
talked about.
it was new, just kind of out there. And but yeah, what if everybody did, I'm going to throw out another, and
Yeah.
people want to explore this, but I talk about it in my book, a genogram,
Yeah.
where and that's a model, like a kind of like a family tree, only you look at all the stuff of your family, right? Everything from when people were born and died and how they died. So mental health, physical health, education, but also relationship dynamics, right? Where was there conflict, cutoff, a lot of the terms, and someone can help guide you through it. But to see that visually and see, look, oh my gosh, look at all these patterns, look at
Mhm.
my husband and I did that as a couple before we had kids. Well, this is fun. And then my daughter did one in high school, like or high school or college, I can't remember. And we know how to do a genogram. We will help you, but to see it through her lens now as her parents. And anyway, painting some of these, there are tools out there that can make it. It's still confrontive, but and that's what I'm trying to get at also in my book, is like we can, there is more choice. We really can have the parenting experience that we dream of, so to speak, or, imagine, but it takes some of this work. It takes
Uh-huh.
some looking at what were the patterns in our families? What did I like? What didn't I like? I try and keep away from the, like, what was bad, what was good. Because as you know, if we don't bring some of that to the surface, we're going to reactively react to it. We're going to
Right.
say, like, I'm going to not be my mother, right? Like over just, and until but that's not better either, because then we actually might swing the pendulum to the whole other side, and then
Right.
who does that help?
Exactly. And that just
Nobody. So
perpetuates also this idea of one person being only one thing,
Yeah.
and including yourself. So you want to bring the shades of gray to all of it, right? For yourself.
For
too.
sure. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And your kids. Like, you don't want to see my kid's bad, my kid's good. I mean, all of those dichotomies. And I, as a trauma therapist, that just screams of trauma when you're in black and white thinking, all or nothing, good or bad. You're not, as Julie and I talk about so much, in a regulated state where you can openly see, okay, my mom really stunk at that, but she was pretty good at that.
Right.
And, this was an area where I wish she had done something different, and this is what I really like. Because ultimately that's what we want to say about ourselves, because we all have stuff we stink at and stuff we're better at, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And that exploration to look at, like, what I like and didn't like isn't then to just, pass judgment or that. Then we can say, well, what's underneath that? Like, I use the example, I didn't like it that my mom never took me to my activities because she worked, right? So I could say, like, okay, so for my children, I'm going to take them to all their activities, but that's not really the root of it, right? Like, what was the desire? What was the hunger? What was the more, like, the deeper desire or need or yearning that I had with that? And it was like, oh, it was connection, or feeling safe or secure, there's lots of ways I can work to bring that in that may not include taking my children to all their activities.
That's a great tool. And that's a great tool also to shift from, again, another trap of perfectionism or doing everything. And then I've had experiences like that too, where I think it ends up trying not to do what my parent did actually ends up making a bigger mess. Because I missed something, right? Either I do too much, but looking at underneath it of, like, oh, what was really the thing that I wanted? And I love that security, connection. I can do that other ways.
I
not
love
just
that
doing
too.
the opposite
Right,
action.
exactly. Instead of reacting, really using a more responsive mode of being. I love that too.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
for sure.
And it takes a lot of work. I just listening to us talk, it's like reaction is easier in short term.
Yes.
Right? Like, let's just name that. Like, it is easier to be like, I'm a good parent because I put them to bed every night or whatever. And looking at your underlying desires and your needs and your pain and your confusion and your childhood, like, that is hard in short term. It has such amazing long-term effects. But I just want to say, like, it is hard work. I think sometimes it can feel like as therapists, like, well, you should do this. It's hard. It's really hard.
And especially in the moment, right? Like and that's where I think giving ourselves a lot of grace and compassion and we may not know in the moment, but I'm a big fan of do-overs or, like, let's replay that. Or, okay, I didn't, I didn't do it in the moment, but we can, there's repair, right?
Repair,
With the
yeah, for
attachment breach or
sure.
whatever
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
talk to parents all the time about the importance of circling back. You don't have to
Yeah.
get it
Oh, I love that term.
right the first time. You want to not make the mistake over and over again. But if you don't get it right, you can circle back around to yourself for one thing and think about, like, why did I respond that way? Why did I react so abruptly?
Yeah.
And then you can circle
Mhm.
back to your child and say, I realized that I flew off the handle there. And that was not about you. It was really about me. And here's how I should have done
Mhm.
it. Right. And you can make the repair in
Mm.
that way by voicing
Mm.
a different way of doing it, both in the past,
Yeah.
but also in the future.
Oh, it's beautiful, Julie.
Yeah.
And you're reminding me of like why we do this hard work because we're modeling for
Yeah.
them. We don't want
Mhm.
them to be reactive. I mean, they will be, as everyone is sometimes, but be
Yes.
more responsive,
Yeah.
right? And so,
Maybe we're creating a pathway that's maybe a little easier for them to be curious, do some of these things and be curious, have more compassion for themselves. And every now and then we might get little signs from them that it's working, or
yeah.
they did see it or get it. If you don't mind, I'll share an
Yeah.
example. My daughter, I think when she was in second or third grade, and it was one of those moments where, I got home from work and I'm like, I didn't think I was in too bad of a state, or
Yeah.
too stressed out till I walked in her room, and I start picking at, like why is this like this? And it wasn't even like any one thing. I was just like, oh, trying to, she was my unfortunate like receiver of like all the upset that I'd had that day. But anyway,
Sure.
I wasn't catching it in the moment. And she looked at me, she's like, Mom, do you need a session? And luckily I had the sense in that moment to not be like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
which could have also easily have happened, in that
Right.
moment. No, your bed's a mess. Like I don't need a session. That you just need to like clean your room.
That's
But I was
wonderful.
like, yeah, I think I do. And she like patted the bed like
Oh,
next to her.
Mm.
Come sit down. Now I'm saying this not from a like, oh, we want our children to take care of us, but I also felt like, let's give her this moment, and she's like, tell me about your day, and I'm like, okay, yeah, there was some stressful stuff, and not, I didn't
yeah.
unload everything, just, enough to like say like, yeah, I guess, wow, yeah, there was a lot.
Yeah.
And thank you for noticing and
Yeah.
interrupting my
Yeah,
behavior.
exactly.
Exactly.
Interrupting. It's great.
Exactly. I mean,
It's
I
great.
think we can learn so much from our kids. Again, as you said, Gertrude, not that they need to be teaching us or, that we need to be relying on them for a session. But
Mm-hmm.
they can call us on our behavior. And if we're willing to
Yeah.
look at that and take that step back, there's so much education that happens in that moment between parent and child and for the parents, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I
And
agree.
if we expect them to do that with us, like we want to give them feedback and for them to
Yeah.
listen,
Mm-hmm.
why wouldn't it be equal? And this goes back to this, the only reason would be this code idea that we're parents,
Right.
some sort of
Yeah,
dominating.
we're
Right.
authoritarian, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, oh, you give me feedback and I give you feedback. Like, you not giving me feedback on what I'm making for dinner because that's what's happening, but about something
Mm-hmm.
that's happening between the two of us. Yeah, I want to hear your
Yes.
feedback. Like, thanks for that
Mm-hmm.
feedback. And I think my kids are so wise. They see things that I don't see about myself. And I'm
Yeah.
grateful when they give me
Yeah.
feedback. Like, I think it's great.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I
So,
love that. So I did want to make sure we covered, because we're
Sure.
coming up to the end,
Mm.
a little bit about your voice framework, because I really liked
Okay.
that. So do you want to share just a little bit about that
Yeah.
framework that
So
you share in your
as a
book?
way to kind of like open the space, like what is this rewriting the mother code and what are we doing here? And, when you go to write a book, like things that you just kind of talk about, in your practice or whatever, you're like somehow now you got to put it into a
right.
framework. Right. But, kind of giving this overarching look at like, what is it that we're going for here? This problem that motherhood, so we've been talking about a lot of the problems written into the culture of the doing it right and doing it alone. And there's a whole bunch more about that. Like those are the problems. So what, what is it about this and how can we approach it? So it turned out to become this wonderful, it's called an acrostic, not an acronym. I've
Oh,
learned this
interesting.
difference when I had to read my book out loud because I said the
Interesting.
acronym voice. No, an acronym is when you take something like um, that's already like, what is it? I can't think of one. Of course, you're trying to think of one. Um, parent something training, like, and you call it PPT, right? Or like parent effectiveness training. Like
Right.
that's going way back.
Right.
And you call it PET, but you're taking the symbols. But when you
Oh.
have um, these words and then they end up making a word, which for me was
Mm.
voice.
Love it.
You could,
Okay,
if
that's good
that's
to
not,
know.
I know, but
No, that is
Yeah,
helpful
it is.
information. I would have called it I would have
it's a
called it an
little,
acronym too, but that's interesting. So
right.
an acronym is if it already exists and you're kind of making it chunkier, you're chunking it. And this is like you're
Yep.
creating a framework.
Love
Okay,
You're
it.
got it.
creating. Yeah. And it
Cool.
happens to be a
Good.
word. I
I
know.
love
Cause
to
it
learn.
was a fun part. Anyway, voice is the V is for vision. So what is we haven't even thought we need a vision for parenthood or motherhood,
Mm.
right? But what is that vision? What is this, um, like the values that I talked about, the desires, and putting that into a statement for
Mhm.
yourself. Like, what do this isn't my fantasy and this isn't goals I have. This is, oh, how do I want to be? What are the qualities of this
Mm.
experience that I want? Like part of a vision could be, I want um, to learn and grow, to expand myself so just to give so we're going to have a vision, and then we're going to take ownership. So the O for voice here is ownership. Like, I don't have to just take what culture and everything around me is telling me I have to do. I can own my experience. I can make these choices like we're talking
Yeah.
about, right? Um, the I is a big one because, and especially, I'm going to say for women, because I is intuition. And that is, part of why this hasn't worked for us is because we've been told our intuition or those gut senses or those feelings we have about something, that we don't even know if it has, scientific evidence to back it up. We just know, that we start paying attention to that. I can call it the wise woman inside us if we don't have these wise women, but this is listening to those sparks and like, I think I don't know if I want to do it that way that everybody's saying. Like, so what is that way? And just being this intuition is, we can put curiosity into that. Okay, so we have V, so C is culture. Like, right? Like, let's identify this culture we're in because motherhood is a cultural construct. At any given moment in time, we're going to look at like what's going on in the atmosphere at that time for what's right or wrong, for how we should be doing it. And I always like to give the example because when I was, researching this and you look at motherhood, through the ages and what you're being taught and what's okay and what's not okay at the late 1800s, this was written down, as advice from a man, that, if you're pregnant, don't look at ugly people. Like literally, that's what it said. Don't look at ugly people. One, there was a belief that like if you looked at ugly people, like you were going to create an ugly child. I have quotes, on that. But also it might be disturbing and upset you emotionally. So we just want, I mean, now we can laugh about that. I mean, in 100 years, they're going to laugh about some of the things that we're doing. So, but also this culture that we've created a culture of isolation, and we want to shift that to a culture of community. And then the E is engagement. So engage, we can know all this, but we have to do something, right? We have to try new behaviors. We have to take steps to create a vision for ourselves. Or I understand the word intuition, but I don't, do I have one? We might need to really engage in some practices that just start opening these things up for us. But I was so happy when we were trying to put these things together, and it was like, yes, we need to have our voice. Like, this is
Yeah.
us having a voice, in this experience, and it's our voice. And if we can, there's a lot of voices out there that are going to tell us, a lot, and we're in such an expert culture. So all those voices out there, if we can hear them for what they are, but then always tune into ourselves for what our choices are.
Yeah. I'm so glad it connected to that word voice, because that is
I know,
so.
because you know what? When I was writing the book and we were playing with different words, and it was coming out as cuspid, or they all sounded like, all I can say is they all sounded like COVID.
Oh,
and we were still in COVID. I'm like, this sounds like COVID, because the V was in there, I literally woke up in the middle of the night. I'm like, wait, I think if we move them around and I shift this one letter, shift the word to this, it'll make voice.
Right, like the voice coming to you. I love that. I love that.
Exactly.
Thank you for sharing that. And it reminds me, when you just said that, I wanted to ask you in the beginning, and I forgot to ask you, speaking of voice, you have a story about your TEDx talk. Can you share a little bit about about how your voice was getting impacted?
My voice was censored in
Yeah,
that,
tell us about that.
I was so grateful to have the opportunity to do a TEDx, as a speaker, someone that's like, oh, that, that's just one of the stages to be on. And so I came up with this talk that I was really proud of, and felt like, it was edgy. It was a little edgy, but not in a lot of circles. But, there's probably information in it that not a lot of people know about birth culture, for example. And I can share what it is in a second. So, but I had TEDx coaches, I was really working to try and stay in their framework as I knew it, right? And knew what their expectations were and what they wanted. And it was an amazing experience. The whole, I'm so, proud of myself, but also so grateful for the family, my support. There was just so many positives, and I do focus on that. But then when it came time to put it up on their YouTube site, they didn't put mine and another woman's up. And they started asking for all of our backup for our talk and our CVs and our credibility. And I tried not to just panic, oh my God, that feeling like my voice is being questioned. And it was scary. I was like, what did I say? That was, so many people looked at this talk and whatever. So it was really scary and crushing. So, long story short, without going, every sordid detail on it, as we tried to explore what it was. And it was sad and upsetting to deal with in an organization that you have a certain perspective of, and you've kind of maybe an over shiny, pedestal almost. And then you see their underbelly, you see they're, one woman, they put a big disclaimer on it and said that we don't approve of this talk, but they still put it up. Mine, what they first did was put this big disclaimer on it, and then, but made it unsearchable. And I didn't even know they could do that. Right. So nobody could find it if they searched for it, unless I gave them the link. So I'm like, this is mean. And you're not telling us what the problem
was
is.
the
We couldn't get anybody to just come out and say.
What was the terribly unsavory content?
Well, we had to, what we had to discern is I spelled out, because again, the talk was about how do we make discerned, conscious decisions. Sometimes we're not given all the information, or we're just told by, been told like so long, it's so in our zeitgeist that we don't even think to question certain things. And so I said, let's pull aside the curtain and just look at a few myths around birth culture. So I gave that a hospital with doctors is the safest place to give birth. And then to say like, well, we might want to question that when the United States has the highest maternal mortality rate of any developed country. And we're 5 times more likely to die in birth than a British woman. And then that's 10 times higher for women of color. And then midwives just kind of naturally left the scene because we have so much better professionalism and technology. And it's like, nope, actually there's documented marketing smear campaigns to get rid of the midwife problem, and really nasty, targeted, like, these are dirty foreign witches. Do you want them on your? Do you like horrible stuff that was? But it got into the culture, and then suddenly now we're looking at midwives as like bad people, right? Instead of, again, another choice, right? Like let us choose. Um, and the third one was that all hospital practice are evidence-based. It's like, no, they're, some of them are just convenient, right? Or some of them they have to do, even though it may not be good for you, like withholding food and water during labor. They don't no longer withhold water. Like, some have gotten better, but some and then they just keep doing it because that's like what we've done, despite all the evidence that labor is like running a marathon, and you wouldn't expect someone running a marathon to not to only have ice chips, through the whole thing. So, and then so it wasn't about demonizing them. And then it's like, gosh, what if we had a culture of community? What if we were seeing other choices? I was hungry to like reconnect with those wise women and the wise woman inside me. And, I made some choices, and those had backlash, and I chose to have a home birth. Again, the talk wasn't about advocating home birth. It was just, I made some choices. People had judgments of them, but they were the right choices for me, based on my vision. I wanted to be present. I wanted to be conscious. And so, okay, these things aligned, right, for me. But really, ultimately, I wanted to show like, and so this is what it looks like to self-mother, to question, to be discerning, to like, hey, I'm thinking, I heard someone talk about that. I want to explore it. And, your family's like, that's dangerous. You're going to die if you do that, without looking at the data. So we had to kind of piece together. We said, if we edit out things that we think, based on what you're saying, you're having a problem with, will you revisit it and make it searchable? So I basically had to cut 3 minutes out of my talk. And some of those 3 minutes were those myths, and not a whole lot else, but and it was just crushing. I wanted to make the whole point, right? So I had to do all this internal work around like, okay, well, does the talk still have value, whatnot? And it does, because I think I'm up to about 250,000 views. Well,
that shows something. Yeah.
Yay for out there. But so clearly this is something that people are wanting to hear about, to talk about, even with the missing information, right? And it's funny because some of the comments actually point to like the missing information, like, well, why, what are some of them, like, what are they, and like, they know they're being withheld, right? So, it was a very growthful experience for me to go through. But I thought, oh my God, here they are proving the point, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's what's so unbelievable.
We're
is
silencing women's
example.
The meta of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, could you give me a better example of why this talk is needed?
Exactly.
It was,
oh my gosh.
Right. And I have chills because of the generations of women who have been silenced. And yours is like the modern version of YouTube and TEDx, but we carry this, we know, epigenetically in us. And so when this happens to one woman, I feel it when you tell me about it.
Don't you? I know.
Yeah. And I
And
feel
it's what
all of
we, and
it.
I'm afraid to put, I was like, I
Exactly.
could have said a lot more scathing truths. Like I really,
Sure.
I thought I pared it down to like ones that are,
Right.
that's data from the CDC and the OECD. You don't have to look far
Right.
to find that data. We just
Yeah.
don't look, and doctors don't tell us like,
Right.
that you really have to advocate for
Yeah.
yourself,
Right.
everywhere in women's health in general, but
Right.
around birth and all of that, like you really have to have your wits about
Yeah.
you, or you just, kind of get on the conveyor belt.
Right.
Absolutely. And it's dangerous to have your wits about you. I mean, this is an example. There's nothing
Mm.
you weren't physically in danger, but intellectually you were threatened. And so I
Mhm.
think it's so important. um you know we talk about the importance of changing these cultural ideas for our own, to feel better and to move through parenting easier. But it's also an advocacy. Like
It
it's an
is.
advocacy
Mhm.
move to be compassionate to yourself as a parent, to talk to other parents, to say, "Hey, did you hear this podcast? This woman was censored." Like we're still being censored.
Yes.
And so I
Mhm.
think it's like, what if parenting is advocacy for women?
Yeah.
Oh, I have goosebumps all over,
Me
Yeah.
too.
Elizabeth, with that.
Yeah.
And I kind of intro my book that way. I'm like, hey, I want you all to have, a fulfilling, personal experience in your motherhood. But guess what? Like, it's having a way bigger impact than you
Mhm.
realize. Like, you don't have to do it for that reason or know it, but I
Yeah.
really truly believe it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
because you're breaking paradigms.
Right.
Totally.
You're
And it goes
going.
back to what you said in the beginning, that we're all mothering. And so mothering is also advocacy.
Yes.
Obviously. That's what
Yeah.
we are.
Yes.
So I'm so grateful that you
Me
came,
too.
and thank you for sharing your vulnerability also
Yeah.
around that
Oh, of
Yeah.
story.
course.
I'm
Of
sure
course. Of
that,
course.
We
yeah,
really
it's
appreciate
really, I'm
Yeah.
that.
sure it really helped so many of our
Yeah.
listeners just to hear your truth
Yes.
and for it to be
Thank
shared
you.
and for us to all hold it together.
Yes, I completely
Yeah.
agree.
Right.
Yeah. It's been it's been really
Thank you.
wonderful having you on, Dr. Lyons,
Mhm.
and
Well, I've loved being with you too.
Yeah.
Very much.
We do have one last question we typically
yes.
Oh,
ask.
sure.
Julie, do you want to
Yes.
ask that?
Sure. If you had to leave our listeners with one final point, like what would it be? I mean, and you can pick more than one if you need to, but like one thing that
Ah,
they
I know.
one,
I always have kind of an idea, and then it's like, oh my gosh, no, but there's so
there's
many
always
points, right?
many points, uh, and they can go and buy your book, obviously. To
Of course. Well, yeah, we'll leave that point,
exactly,
right? Like, well, let's make sure and make that
exactly.
point. Yeah. Well, and I think one other say, because I'm so glad at the end, we're any move forward for you, or doing this in a more sovereign way, motherhood and is impacting globally. It also, there are a lot of benefits to it, because it is, yes, there's the hard, but we've been taught that pain is hard, and things that are painful and hard, like, we should avoid, and everything's supposed to be easy,
Right.
but that's a myth, right? Birth isn't easy, and motherhood isn't easy. Um, and it doesn't just mean like, yeah, but it's so joyful. It's like, uh, there are a lot of opportunities and a lot of layers of opportunity in it. One, our growth and development, like our self
Mhm.
actualization. And then that journey can open up doors to, that's where I came, kind of the subtitle, from sacrifice to stardust, a cosmic approach to motherhood. That aspect of it isn't just like, oh, so then you just float in the stars,
Right.
no, like, but you may open up to access of just bigger truths, larger realities, like, and they're not even, it's universal type information, that wisdom that's out there, that we are all connected, right?
Right.
That, and just put it in a different framework of like the bigness that it is. One that I named was that self-mothering is a sacred
Mm.
experience. It's not just like, oh, that's another thing on my to-do list and I should self-mother, and that sounds like a lot of time and energy. And it's like, no, when you can step into the, like, this is a sacred experience, any little like different thought I have, any little thing I do to acknowledge myself, I'm self-mothering. And like, isn't that incredible and glorious, right? Pain doesn't have to be something we avoid. Pain can be a portal. Pain brings that new life in, and any creative process is probably going to have some angst, pain, to varying degrees. But if we can hold that in a different framework, right? So I do outline some of those, and that's another part of the invitation in all of this work.
I love that. I love that. It has been amazing talking to you. Will you say the name of your book one more time? And if there's a way for people to reach you, or if you don't want them to reach you, that's fine too.
I do want people to reach out to me. You can DM me on Instagram at Dr. Gertrude Lyons. The book is Rewrite the Mother Code: From Sacrifice to Stardust, A Cosmic Approach to Motherhood. And it came out May 13th, 2025. So it's not quite a year old.
Awesome.
It's still
a baby.
It's still a baby, but your baby's out there, and it's so vulnerable. And you can find anything and everything. Yes, the book is where books are sold, but on my website is drgertrudelyons.com. So try to make it easy. If you search Rewrite the Mother Code or drgertrudelyons.com, and then it talks about my coaching, my retreats, my self-mothering retreats, and other things. I have a podcast also.
Wonderful.
So we'll have to talk about that. Yeah. With you all. So we'll, so those are all the ways that you can find me and reach me.
So great.
Thank you
so
so
great.
Much.
You've been listening to the Parenting Horizons podcast. If you would like to reach Elizabeth Cohen, you can go to www.centerforcbtinnyc.com.
And if you'd like to reach Julie Ross, please go to www.parentinghorizons.com.